So this video is meant to provide additional information for individuals who will serve as a scribe at the listening, a table scribe at the listening sessions. I hope you've had an opportunity to listen to Sister Donna's 30-minute video, which reviewed the listening session process itself. That should give you a good overview of what will take place in the listening sessions. But now we want to delve a little bit deeper into the role, particularly of the scribe at those sessions. So let's first go back to something that Donna shared with us earlier. She said that there are several different people in the room at those listening sessions. We have, of course, the main facilitator, or maybe there's co-facilitators, and those individuals are actually running the session. And then remember, we have different tables, and perhaps there might be 5 or 6 individuals at each table. This is meant to encourage conversation and to make it easier to move through the materials. So at each one of those tables, there will be a facilitator, and the job of that facilitator, of course, is to keep the conversation moving. And while we have those table facilitators, we have at each table also a scribe, and the role of that scribe, very simply, is to take notes. But I'd like you to consider that as a scribe, you're much more than just a person who's taking the notes or writing things down. You're really working as a team in partnership, both with the main facilitator of the session, but also with the table facilitator, and in fact, with all of the participants, every individual that is sitting at your table. And I think that this is important, and you'll see why in a few minutes as we continue to review. I'd like us to remind ourselves really of the goal of the listening session. It is, in fact, to engage as many people as possible in conversation. Your facilitators will certainly be focused on that and focused on sort of those global questions and giving prayerful input on the needs of the church today and how we speak about the mission of Christ to all people in the world today. But I want you as scribes to also be attentive to this idea of engaging as many people as possible. And I want you to understand that your note should reflect that. It should reflect the voices of the many individuals that are at your table. It's about listening to different people at the table. So I'll provide for you an example of what I'm trying to get at here. I was designated as the table scribe, or the scribe for a group, for a class, and we were gathering in a small group. And I tried to be very attentive and write down thoughts or ideas from everybody who participated in that group. I was charged with taking those notes and then passing those notes along to the professor. So I wanted to make sure that the professor understood that everybody indeed participated in the conversation. So I think that that's an important distinction. Certainly when I'm in class, right, I might be very attentive in trying to take notes on what the professor shares with us, and maybe not taking detailed notes on what all of my fellow classmates might say. But this is different. We want to recognize everybody's voice. So try to make sure that as people share, that you're not just focusing on what one individual has to say over and over again, but that for each question you're trying to share those different perspectives. It is also important for both the facilitator and the scribe to recognize that these conversations are conversations and dialogue. It's not a debate. It's not about us defending a particular doctrine or position of the church. It's not about correcting somebody in their theology or understanding of the church. It's not about judging somebody or trying to kind of fix what's going on in their lives. It simply is about listening and recording what we hear. And so for a moment, let's think about the qualities of a table scribe. Certainly good note-taking is in fact a skill. We can appreciate this if you have kids, right? The teachers at school are always trying to help the students understand what it means to take a good notes, right? Or to be good listeners. And so that is actually the first quality, that we be attentive or active listeners in this process. It requires us actually to be fairly focused as the table discussion is going on. You will note the facilitator will review guidelines and make sure that everybody is following their sort of rules or guides to the conversation. So hopefully everyone at the table will follow that, but we need to be good listeners. A good note-taking also requires us to be organized, to have our thoughts in an organized manner on the paper. And finally, a table scribe really needs to be able to capture key themes or patterns or concepts, and then perhaps synthesize ideas. So maybe over the course of several questions, or as the conversation progresses, we might be able to synthesize certain ideas or certain topics that keep rising to the top as time goes by, as we sit at the table and we listen to one another. So let's look a little bit more closely at the role of the table scribe, not merely just writing things down. We're taking notes on the conversation. We're not writing every single detail down, but we're trying to capture the main ideas and themes. I want to encourage you again to feel like you're working with all of the participants at the table to identify what those themes are. So you might write some of your what you're hearing down on the paper, but then feel free to say to folks, okay, let me make sure that I've got this correctly, and perhaps reread to those at your table what you've captured, or at least those main ideas, and make sure that you've understood correctly what they've shared. You want to present a synthesized list as much as possible of those key points. Remember, there could be many other tables at the listening session, and so the main facilitator and your parish coordinator will need to take the notes from all of the tables and put it together. So as best as you can, to present a summary is very, very helpful for your main facilitator and parish coordinator. You'll need to work with your coordinator after the listening session to get the notes to them, because then each parish will turn around and take all of the notes and compile it into a parish report that will then be shared with the Archdiocese. So a couple of other ideas for us to keep in mind. Please try to make sure that your handwriting is as legible as possible, appreciating that either the pastor or your coordinator or facilitators will need to be able to read that writing. If at all possible, I know some folks, when they take notes, they feel comfortable taking those notes right on an iPad or on a laptop or another device. So they're typing those notes out. And if that is possible, if you feel comfortable doing that, I am sure that your parish coordinator would appreciate that. But you may also take handwritten notes. There is a form, and we're going to look at what that form, what that looks like in a few minutes. But I encourage you as much as possible to use that form when you're taking notes. Again, the notes should be as clear and concise and as organized as possible as you try to share that with the parish coordinator and the main facilitator. So in order to do that, in order to be clear and concise and organized, what you might find helpful is to have extra sheets of paper. You might, as the conversation unfolds, you might want to jot notes down on those blank sheets and then go back afterwards, reread what you wrote, think about it, ponder it, and then organize those notes and then put it into the form before you hand those forms off to your parish coordinator. I would encourage you not to wait to do those notes and compile those notes as soon as possible after the listening session, right? Our memories with time, the passing of time, it sort of fades away. So I find if I'm in charge of taking notes at a meeting, I don't want to leave the meeting and then, not look at that or not compile the notes for a month or so, because a month later, I'm just not going to really remember what we talked about or how or the various topics we got on. I might look at my notes and not even understand something that I wrote. So the quicker you can kind of get back to those notes and compile them, the easier it'll be. I ask you again also to just keep in mind that we do have an aggressive timeline here in the Archdiocese. Most listening sessions will be happening in January and February. We don't have the luxury of many, many weeks. So as quickly as possible as you can get those notes together and provide them to your parish coordinator, the better it'll be. Certainly if you can compile the notes maybe before you leave, would be ideal, but some listening sessions, especially if they're happening in the evening, it may be a long day and you may be tired at the end of the night and not really able to sit around and do the notes then, but I encourage you to try to do it soon afterwards. So the question I think for us to think about really is, at the table, what do you hear? And you see this cute little bunny there with one ear up. Obviously, we want to listen with both ears. We want to be very attentive. As I said before, we're looking, as we're taking notes, we're looking for themes or patterns in the discussion. You often see perhaps maybe 2 or 3 people sort of sharing or coming back to the same ideas. So you want to certainly note that. As I started out sharing with you, please work with the facilitator at your table and even the participants to identify the top priorities. You might say to them, so what are we saying? What are we agreeing on? What do we recognize here? What are those commonalities for us? And work together. Don't shoulder that burden yourself, but work together with those in your group as you take the notes. I think the third bullet is something interesting and perhaps helpful for you. I like to call it the parking lot. So there might be ideas or thoughts that are shared at the table that are really beyond the scope of the synod or beyond the question that has been stated by the facilitator, but it's still important. Maybe it's beyond what you might want to share with the Archdiocese, or it's not necessarily something that we need to send all the way to the Vatican, but it might be something that's important for our pastor to know or to understand about our local community. So I'll provide for you an example of what I might mean. So at the table, you might be talking about how do we welcome people, or what's the experience that people might have when they come to our parish, and someone at the table might share an insight or say, I find at Mass it's really hard to listen at the Mass. I sit in the back and I sit on the left-hand side, and I notice that in the speaker from the microphone, there's this annoying buzzing sound. So maybe our pastor's not aware of that. Maybe he doesn't know that the speaker's not working. He, in fact, does not sit in the back in that particular pew. He's always up front. So unless someone has pointed that out to him, he might not know that. So again, that's way beyond the scope or outside of what's important to share with the Archdiocese. But it is important to share that with our pastor. And so I would, if I have extra sheets of paper, I might put at the top of it, parking lot, important for our parish to know, maybe not so important to send that along and let the Archdiocese know that the speaker's not working. So use that idea, right? Everything that people share may be important in certain ways to our local community. And this isn't just about having this event and talking and sharing stuff with the Archdiocese and having it go all the way to Rome. It is also about listening in our own communities and understanding more about our own communities and our own experience of faith and what we can learn and how we can grow as faith communities. So parking lot, something to think about. I think also I would, while I said to you earlier that this isn't about writing down every single detail that everyone says at the table, I'd ask you to be attentive that at certain times someone might share a story or offer a direct quote. They might be quite articulate, or the way that they say something might be, they might really be able to capture some ideas that everyone at the table has really been kind of pondering for a while. So be attentive to those times when those direct quotes, you say, wow, that person really just said it all right then, or that story that individual shared with us was so poignant and relevant to what we're talking about. Perhaps you do want to capture that. You do want to capture the details of that. So be attentive to that. Certainly parishes in their report may want to share with us at the Archdiocese a witness or a testimony in that way, a direct quote. And so feel free to offer that over as you take your notes. But we want you to understand that anything that anybody shares in conversation really is anonymous. So as you write down the notes, as the parish synthesizes and puts together its report, the parish is not attributing comments to specific individuals. The parish is not writing to the Archdiocese and saying, John Smith's in Newark said, and then giving us a direct quote. So we want to reassure both you as the note taker, but those individual the participants at your table as well, that comments are not being attributed to specific individuals. So we hope that in some way that gives people a sense of freedom of expression to share their experience of church. So let's look now at the form for you as scribes. And as I said earlier, we encourage you to use this form. What you see now on your screen, this is the first page with a small, short paragraph of sort of information or instruction for you. It's important that you note on there the location of the listening session. So meaning if it's at the parish at St. John's or St. Mary's, you want to write that down. You want to write the date down. It's important because there's lots of different listening sessions taking place. We want to try to keep track of all of that for your parishes. Your parishes may be holding a number of different listening sessions on different dates. So please do make sure that you note that as you take on your notes. Also, please identify how many people are sitting at your table. We want to keep track diocese-wide about how many participate in the listening session. So the easiest way to do that is table by table. Do you have 5 people or 10 people at your table? Please note that down. This demographic information that you find on the first sheet is very important to us because the question is, who is here? Whose voice are we hearing in these conversations, right? Is it men or women? What ages? You know, kind of what is their experience or connection to the parish community or to the Catholic community overall. So with that in mind, that's kind of where what we were trying to grapple with these demographic questions. So who's here? As I said, whose voice? But then also it's vitally important for us later to recognize who is missing from those conversations, because this is very much about us taking the next step and continuing to try to reach out and engage people in conversation. So the only way that we can identify who wasn't there is if we know who came. Who did we hear from? And then we can do a much better job in following up and identifying who else do we need to turn to, who do we need to invite in the future to have a conversation with us. I want you to be, when you come to this particular page, both you as the scribe as well as the facilitator, to be mindful. There's so much for us to discuss. There's a lot. These listening sessions are really packed. So please do not spend a tremendous amount of time gathering demographic information. Please don't spend 10 or 15 minutes just talking about who's at the table. This is kind of a quick snapshot, if you will, and then you need to very quickly move into the questions. The second page of the form, you'll see it looks like this. In fact, all the other pages kind of look like this as well. You have the main, the question, and then you have the question that you see here. It says, share 3 examples of walking together in the community. And then there are lines, several lines. They're numbered 1, 2, 3. And you write in the answers there, and then you move to the next. And that's kind of the form itself is just meant to give you a space to organize and write in the thoughts. Again, I think the whole document, the whole form is 7 or 8 pages. We're not looking, and your parish isn't looking for you to provide them with 30 pages of notes. Remember, there's probably multiple other tables who are also participating in the listening session, maybe a number of different listening sessions. So we want to make this as easy as possible for your parish coordinators to manage all of the data. So remember, I said earlier, clear and concise is what we're looking for. And an opportunity, again, if you think about this, this shouldn't be the only opportunity for you within your parish community to talk and to listen and to journey together. We hope that and know that as an archdiocese and as parish communities, we'll continue to walk together. So there should be many other opportunities for us to gather in dialogue. So if this is just the first step, we want to try to gather those main ideas, document that so that it can be shared with the pastor and the staff in your parish and the leaders in ministry. And then they can turn around and also share some ideas and thoughts from your community with the Archdiocese, and we can compile our report as well. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. I hope that you're excited about this opportunity to journey together, to listen to others. If you have any questions about taking notes or your role as a scribe, please feel free to reach out to Sister Donna, who is the coordinator of the Synod here in the Archdiocese, or myself. My name is Milissa Else, and I work with Sister Donna. So thanks very much for agreeing to take those notes. You have an important job for us. We want to continue that conversation, and the only way that we'll be able to do that is if we have good notes on the conversations that we're already having. So thanks very much, and take care.